All right, so let's talk about the traffic pattern. And here you can see a runway, um, and the runway is east and west. Let's call it dead east and west. So we've got runway 9 and 27 present, and you can see that the aircraft are facing in the direction of east, so they would be landing on runway 9 because 9 is on the east side of our compass, as we have discussed earlier in this training course. So here you can see the little airplanes departing runway 9, and that's literally the departure leg of the um, traffic pattern. Now you can see this particular traffic pattern. If you read up here in the orange lettering above, it says it's a standard runway pattern with left turns. So all patterns are left turn unless otherwise stated. So if you look on the um, sectional charts, or if you look in the chart supplement US, it will always have an RP for right pattern, and we'll be showing you more of that information a little bit later. But if it's right, they will tell you right. If it's left, if it's a standard pattern, they just won't say anything when you look that information up. So, so when we get out here on our departure and we make our first left turn, you notice that we're turning what's called crosswind. Now, we could have the option to go straight out. We could have the option to do a 45-degree departure to a left, but the standard pattern is this 90-degree turns that you're seeing here. Now, once we finish out a crosswind turn, if we make another left turn, you see that's a downwind. So you see the aircraft over there that's heading back westbound. It is on the downwind leg. Now they show the 45-degree midfield entry here way down on the eastern side of the runway. That's not really where a midfield entry would take place. You would literally find the center of the runway and you would draw a straight 90-degree turn or a 90-degree angle out there, and where it met that downwind is where the midfield entry would be. Why they did this in this particular piece of artwork, I don't know. I grabbed this off the internet, so they just show it way down on the end of the runway and not really midfield. So I just don't want that to confuse you. Anyhow, so there's a downwind. The next turn, 90 degrees left, would be a base turn, and the last 90-degree turn would be for your final, and that way you would be lined up with runway 9. Your compass heading would be runway 9 in the aircraft, and that's the direction you would land. Now, if for some reason the tower had an aircraft extend because they didn't want them to land, they would extend their base. So they would turn from downwind onto base, they would extend that base, and then they would turn left onto what we call an upwind. So the wind would be coming directly at the aircraft, like as if they were doing a landing, because really they have aircraft land into the wind. You don't want to land with the wind, it's quite dangerous. So all aircraft are headed into the wind to make their landing. So you can bet that if the wind changes, they will change the runway, the active runway, and it will be to the runway that is facing mostly into the wind. Now, you can't always have it perfect. The wind may be 20 or 30, 40 degrees off from the runway heading on either side, in which case it would be a crosswind landing. But nonetheless, they'll try to aim an aircraft as close to in the wind as they can get it. So you might want to freeze the screen here and take this in, make some notes: departure, crosswind, downwind, base, and final, and then of course to landing. All right, so I want to talk to you about a question that they will most likely ask you on on the test when you go for the Part 107 exam. And to do that, we're going to draw this out here. First of all, the question would be, where would an aircraft be if it were on a, let's say, left midfield downwind for runway 25? I'm just picking any number now, just like they would on a test. They're not necessarily trying to make this easy, but it's also not necessarily hard. When you get a question that asks you something like this, where would the aircraft be on a left midfield downwind for runway 25, the first thing I do is draw the compass rose. Now, it doesn't have to be perfect, and you would be shocked at how imperfect this can be and still get you the right answer. So if you freehand this drawing, they're going to give you paper and pencil on the test. And if they ask you if you want it, definitely say yes. Because when it comes to answering this question, you should always draw it. So you need to get accustomed to drawing a simple cross on your paper. So I'm going to start with a horizontal line, and then I'm going to add a vertical line as close to the center as I can. Again, this does not have to be perfect. Now, I'm going to go ahead and label these as north, south, east, and west, but we're going to start with the north. So north is either 0 or 36. It's literally heading 0 or 36 because there's 360 degrees in the entire compass. So it's referred to either one of these. It's referred to as either one of these, 0 or 36. The next one here to the right is going to be east, and that's 90 or 90 degrees. Now, in aviation, you would usually add a 0, and it would be 090. The bottom down here is going to be south, and we all know that's 180 or 180 degrees. And then your west is 270. So each one of these being 90 degrees off the other, 0 to 90, 90 plus another 90 is 180, 180 plus another 90 is 270, and then 270 plus another 90 is 360. But in order to pin down where this aircraft is on a left midfield downwind for runway 25, we need to add a little bit more. So I'm going to chop up the section between 36 and 90, or 0 and 90, however you want to look at it. I'm going to chop it up into 2 more pieces. So again, you can draw these lines and they don't have to be perfect thirds, but I'm chopping this into 3 sections, right? So we're going to do that all the way around. And again, you'll see some of my lines are a little bit longer than other lines, and just to kind of show that it doesn't have to be perfect. They're not even actually splitting it up perfectly 90 degrees. I drew these, or I made lines, but I put them in place just haphazardly and angled them haphazardly because they're in no way, shape, or form perfectly directioned or perfectly measured out. These are just put on here just like you would freehand draw it. Now, we want to go and label these. So each one of these now is going to be 30 degrees. So the first one, 30 degrees. The second one, 60 degrees. Then, of course, the next line would be 90. Next up, 120, then 150, and then we have 180. The next one's 210, 240, then you have 270. The next line I put in is 300, and then 330. So now, we need to figure out where this runway 25 is located. So, over here at 240 is where 25 would be, because 25 is really 250 degrees. The runway would be 25, but the added 0 would make the compass heading 250 degrees. So if we go over here near the 240 and go just a little bit above it, and then draw a line straight through there across the center, it would look something like this. Again, you're not necessarily going to draw it dead center, and it may come out above that 60 over there. It may come out below that 60. As long as you get it close to the 2.5 area, you're going to be fine, right? So draw yourself a line across there, and I would implore you to go back through this video and draw your own picture as I'm doing it on mine. You do it on yours, and you freehand yours, and you'll see in the long run that you come up with the same answer that I would come up with. So if I draw this, and like I did, and I get it right down the center, it's going to be so close to actual that it's not going to be funny, because in real life, 2.5 would, the opposite, the reciprocal would be 7. And so it kind of actually landed right where 7 would sort of be. It isn't perfect, but close enough, right? So which way would we be landing to have the compass be heading 2.5 or 250? Which way, where would the numbers be located on the runway to say 2.5? Well, believe it or not, they'd be down here by the 60, right? Or 070, which is where we said the other end of our runway would be. But we're going to be heading in the direction of this arrow that I'm going to put on the runway. We'd be heading that way because we'd be heading towards 250. So as you can see, the teal colored arrow is heading towards 250. If we were landing in that direction, our compass would be reading 250. So our final approach would be back here where the second teal arrow is. That would be the final approach. So our base, if we're making left turns into this final, and this was a standard traffic pattern, our base would be here where the purplish, pinkish purple arrow is now showing. That would be our base. So our downwind would obviously be here where the orange arrow is facing, and that would be the downwind. So now we have our pattern pretty much drawn out to include our downwind, which is the piece we need. We need to know where our base is, because we also need to know where the final is to tell us which runway we're landing on. So if you draw this on your paper, if you backtrack this from where you're landing to get the 250, where's your final, where is your base, and where's your downwind, then you can go to the midfield point on the runway and draw a 90-degree line out from midfield like this with the white arrow, and it will show you where your aircraft should be as it approaches a midfield turn, 45-degree angle midfield downwind turn. It would be located here where this white X is. Now, let's wipe out this information at the top. We know where we're at now, so we don't need this information anymore. I want to tell you you're going to get 3 answers from the FAA. If you notice, our white X is both south and east of the compass rose here. So it would be southeast of the midpoint of the field, right? But I can tell you that the FAA is not going to make you split this answer. So the possible answers for this might look like this. Answer A would be north. Is the aircraft north of the field? Not at all, because it is south of the line that we created between 090 and 27. That's our east-west marker. So that should be center of the compass rose, north and south. And since our white X is very south, it's not anywhere near north, then that's not an answer. It can't be. So let's rule out north right now. The next one is B, south. Well, it is south because it's south of that line of 090 and 270. So it could be south. It also could be east. So let's look and see what the FAA has given us for the final possible answer here. And they said west. So it's definitely not west because it's not to the left of the line between 0 and 180 or 36180, however you want to call it. So it must be that they're trying to get us to answer south because that's the only legitimate answer out of these three. It's definitely not north. It's definitely not west. So it is south. Now, they could have asked us, is it north, east, or west? And in that case, it would have been east. But in this case, it's north, south, or west. And you have to choose B, south. So hopefully you get a good understanding from that as to how to choose the direction and how to find an aircraft that's in a midfield downwind for whatever runway it is. Whatever it is, if you draw this compass rose and you draw that airport, the runway, going in the correct direction, you cannot go wrong on this problem, no matter how bad your drawing may be.